Right there folks, it's Rod Fleming here. Now, one of my other videos got a query from someone whose father has recently come out as transgender. In his 40s, wife and kids, clearly autogynephilic, absolutely obvious autogynephile. I wanted to try and do something that might help a little bit for people who are in this position, so I'm going to do a few videos and some blog posts. First of all, explaining what's going on, because yet again people just don't seem to get it. So the first thing is that when when your father or an authority male in the family comes out as transgender, we'll go with the language, it's a disaster for the family. It's a massive, massive, massive issue that causes really big problems. Now, autogynephilia, just to recap, is the most common form, most common provocative agent for male to feminine transgenderism in the West. Sorry, they are totally distinct from homosexual transsexuals. HSTS, or transsexuals I call them, are characterised because they are attracted to men from childhood very strongly. They're incredibly girly, they're gender non-conforming as kids. They can't really survive as men, you know, they just can't. And they don't want to. They're girls, they're attracted to men, they want men. Autogynephiles are not like that. So, autogynephilia actually appears, in contrast to HSTS, which appears normally before puberty, autogynephilia appears after puberty or around about. In otherwise normal boys, they will not have been effeminate. Autogynephiles will start to become sexually attracted to themselves as women, right? Now, most of us are familiar with the idea of having a fantasy, you know, in order to masturbate, to have sexual pleasure. And when we're having sex, we use fantasies to heighten the pleasure of the sex and usually to make us orgasm. Both men and women do that. Men's fantasies tend to be very visual, whereas women's fantasies tend to be somewhat more conceptual, but that's a side point. Now, the fantasies go beyond, whether you're a man or a woman, they go beyond the idea of simply imagining, you know, the image of a sexual target. You actually make the target play a role. Normally you project yourself as a guy having sex with whoever, you know, whatever it is turning you on. But let's suppose you project yourself into the target, and that you go, right, now I want to know what the target feels like while we're having sex. Okay? The AGP will enjoy playing the role of the woman in this sexual fantasy. And now in real life, you quite often find that AGPs will, autogynephiles, we'll call them AGPs for short, will enjoy the company of women. Now, it's not really a sexual company. It's something slightly strange and different, because what he's actually doing is he's amassing data which he'll use to make better fantasy characters of women that he can then be, right, when he imagines himself having sex as a woman. Okay? Where are we? So, if he's actually going to have sex with a woman, and again, you should read Anne Lawrence's book, Men Trapped in Men's Bodies. She's published an awful lot of stuff in, but that one is the key. Read that one. And you'll find that they report that when they have sex with their wives, because remember, autogynephiles normally are married and they normally will have kids, in the West anyway. You have to be gynephilic, you have to be attracted to women to be autogynephilic. It's basic. But when they're having sex with their wives, they will often report that they have to do it as lesbians. They have to imagine themselves as being women having sex with their wives, otherwise they can't get off, you know, they can't be stimulated. And that's why in later times, after they've transitioned, they've come out as transgender, and they'll say, oh, but I'm actually a homosexual, you know, a lesbian transgender, and that idiot Justin Riley Dennis comes to mind, and they will start to berate women because women will not have sex with them, you know, because lesbians not going to have a sex with a a person with a penis. But to the autogynephile, it's a girl penis. In teenage years, the autogynephile in the West has got a problem because he's not gay and he's often homophobic. He really doesn't want to be seen as gay, and he will be aware that people around him are beginning to wonder because, you know, he likes women's company. He hangs around with the girls. He doesn't really like the guy stuff, you know. So what he'll do is he'll hyper-masculinize, right? He'll become super masculine. He might become really good at sport. Bruce, Caitlyn Jenner, a very good example. You know, that's a superstar Olympian, and I mean a superstar. When, you know, go and read the reports about Jenner when, you know, he was on top of his career, and he was an amazing character. I mean, just an incredible athlete. They might become footballers. They might become, you know, any range of masculine sporty things. Rugby players. They'll go into masculine careers. You know, they might go into the military. A lot of them go into the military. Or they might become engineers, CEOs. They'll do stuff that's masculine. They will not become hairdressers, you know. It just ain't going to happen. Now, they'll probably, even starting at school, they'll probably have girlfriends, and these girlfriends will tend to be very beautiful because they're attracted to beautiful women very strongly. And the thing is about autogynephiles, because they're quite empathetic, I call it pseudo-empathy, because they're not really empathetic to women at all. They're actually drawing on women. You know, they're taking the information from women so they can construct better psychological models of them. But they do appear to be empathetic. But they'll have a slight vulnerability about them. And these things will make them quite attractive to women. They'll go, yeah, I mean, they're slightly more easy to get along with than your standard buff jock male, you know. The girl's mother will probably love him. She'll think, what a great guy, you know, he's sensitive, he's nice, he's kind of empathetic, you know. They'll probably marry young, the couple will probably have kids early on, okay? But while this is happening, his private sexual fantasies get more and more and more intense. And as his daily character gets more and more resolutely masculine, so in his head, the character that he plays in sex becomes more wildly, stereotypically feminine. I mean, this becomes the whore of Babylon. Trust me, you know, these people's fantasies, when you start to read what they actually imagine, they would curdle milk. They really would. They're very strong, you know, and I'm not easily shocked. Now, in their teenage, the autogynephile will name the character, normally. Depends on the strength of the autogynephilia, but we're talking about the strong ones here, the ones that will probably eventually, you know, transition. So it'll get a name, and again, this name was likely to be very exotic, very, you know, glamorous and romantic. Oh, something special, you know. And the character by this stage is absolutely the dominant focus for the autogynephile's sexual attraction, right? She gets an identity. She becomes a real person. He'll imagine her dressing in a particular way, usually a very slutty way, you know, like it wouldn't be out of place in a burlesque or strip show, whatever you call it. Remember, she only exists inside the AGP's head. She's got no real physical existence. But at some stage or another, the AGP decides he wants to realise this, you know, make the fantasy real. Now, that's really not that uncommon. Most of us do that. You know, if you have a little thing that you fancy doing in bed with your partner, it's likely that you'll think about this quite a lot and fantasize about it, maybe have, you know, sexual fantasies about it, before you approach her or him and say, look, do you fancy trying this? And you hope that that person will go along with it. It doesn't really matter what it is. The point is you've kind of rehearsed it in your head a little bit, so you kind of know what's going on. Well, a lot of autogynephiles are really doing the same thing. They've got the sexual persona that they like to be already worked out in their head. So let's make this character real. How can we actually get it out in the world so that we can perform with it? And the way you do that, two ways. First way is you dress up in women's clothes. And that's what they do. They dress and go out in women's clothes. The other way is self-pleasuring. They'll start to indulge in anal play. They'll start to maybe get their partners to so-called peg them, which is in which the partner, the woman, if it's a woman, homosexual men never do this, by the way. If it's a woman, you'll get the partner to wear a strap-on dildo and anally penetrate him, right? Because he feels that's making him feel like a woman being penetrated, you see. Sex as a woman, it's a really, really big, important thing. And if he starts to really get off on that, then that can become very, very dominant. You know, if it leads to orgasm on a frequent basis, well, you know, anything can happen, all bets are off, because sex is so powerful. Right. Now, actually, that phase, that phase where it's just secret, where he goes out dressed in secret and he's playing with himself, and maybe got a collection of toys, it can go on all their lives. And there's plenty of AGPs out there that nobody will ever know they're AGP. But the stronger the AGP character, the stronger the second character gets, the more difficult it is to contain, and the stronger the person's male sex drive is, the more powerful the second character will be, because he's got a real libido going here. He wants a lot of sex, but it's inverted so that the sex is being imagined happening with himself as a woman. This, just quickly to interject here, is called an erotic target location error. It means that you're erotically fixated on a character that is not outside yourself, right? If I am attracted to someone, I'm attracted to that person, I like young, attractive women, and I prefer them to have cocks. That's just the way it is. But they're not part of me. They're out there. They're real people. They walk around. You have to feed them. All that sort of stuff. But they have bad moods. They have good moods. They're real people. Autogynephiles aren't like that. The object of their sexual fantasy is inside them. It's inside their own brain. So it's an erotic target location error, because instead of being outside the self, it's inside the self. Okay, as the second character gets stronger and more powerful, and it gets more reward, resulting in more sex drive, resulting in more orgasms, resulting in more power to the new character. Typically what will happen is the purging and binging that I talked about before, where basically when the guy is in control, when he asserts control, says, no, I will not do this, I will not throw away my life to become you that I've created, he'll destroy all the stuff. He'll get rid of all his girl clothes and all his dildos and God knows whatever else they use. He'll burn them, he'll stick them in a skip somewhere a long way from home. But when she takes over again, and she will, she goes out and buys them all back again. And this can happen again and again and again. Really, the cycle gets shorter and more intense, and fortunes of money get spent. Until, as I said before, at some point, bang, that's it. She just takes over and destroys it. The original person that created that character, it's basically dead. It's been killed by this this parasite that's been growing inside it. It created, the guy created this thing. He nourished it, he fed it, he kept it going. He diving off to his bedroom, didn't think people were watching, putting on his underwear, his girly clothes and all the rest of it, jacking it off. And eventually, bang, that's it. He has to come out as a woman. Now, he's not a woman. He's never going to be a bloody woman. And at the same time, the chances are he will lose family, career, everything. We know that autogynephilia is a function of male sex drive, because we know that the more testosterone you've got, the stronger it will be. Dr. Michael Bailey, one of the world's leading sex researchers, has actually treated autogynephiles with very, very strong testosterone blockers. So that he said himself he was amazed that they could actually have sex after it. But it was completely successful. The pseudo-feminine character, which was causing all the problem, just vanished. Gone. Bang, that was it. As soon as the testosterone came down below a certain level, she just disappeared. Because she's not real, she's just a figment of his imagination. Unfortunately, autogynephiles themselves, autogynephilic activists, really push hard to prevent any such therapies being used, because it's an existential struggle for them, because the autogynephilic activists are the pseudo-feminine second characters who survived, who took over, who won. They don't want some doctor coming along and saying, here's a pill and that's it, you've gone. An autogynephilic man coming out like that, he's going to demand all the privileges that he had as a man, like sex with the woman he married, who thought he was a man, and who's now asked to have sex with a woman. She's a straight woman, and he's saying, no, now you've got to have lesbian sex with me. He may, approach lesbians and try and compel them to have sex with him on the grounds that his penis is now a female penis. Okay, strange enough as it seems. They're notorious for ruining the family finances. You'll end up in the gutter. And they will spend fortunes. In the United States particularly, they spend tens of thousands of dollars on cosmetic surgeries and other things that aren't covered by insurances, you know, just so that they can appear more like this fantasy woman they've got in their head. They just fuck everything up. And the people around them, the women and children who are basically their victims, you know, you have to have huge sympathy for these people because they didn't ask for it. I mean, they didn't go around inventing weird second characters in their heads and hiding them for 25 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years maybe. They've been just, you know, expecting on someone to be what they said they were. And they're not. They've been lying. I mean, that's the worst of it. These people, because autogynephilia appears around or just after puberty. So these people have been lying. They think it's all right to lie, you know, because they're narcissists. They think, oh, that's fine. I can use these other people. We can use a woman to mask the fact that I'm actually, you know, I have this thing that I like to dress up in girls' clothes, and, you know, and as the problem develops, they will continue to use them to present to society a facade of normalcy. But then when it gets too strong, all of that, fuck it. Very difficult to have sympathy for them. Anyway, that's I've put up a blog post which basically covers this, right? It's all the salient primary details, and we'll go into talking about what you can actually do to help yourself if your husband comes home one day, or your dad comes home one day and says, I'm a woman. You know? My own advice is the first thing you should do is go out and have a very stiff drink and then deal with it. Okay, so next time, take care, have fun, more coffee, lovely sun. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Gives you lots of leeway. Thank you.